Humanity Matters.
And thank you for joining me today. I'm your host with my co-host, Sami here. I'm your co-host, Carin. I'm actually Sami's co-host. This podcast is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. And we are here on It's All About the Children with Jeff Schoep, who, if you didn't hear part one, just to give you a little background, he was the longtime leader of one of the largest neo-Nazi organizations in the United States, a movement that was very much rooted in anti-Semitism and hate, racial supremacy. Jeff left extremism behind and completely transformed his life. And today he works to prevent radicalization and hate groups by building human connection. He wrote a book called American Nazi: From Hate to Humanity. He's working with Simon Wiesenthal and coming out to combat hate. And we have my co-host, Sami, who is a Holocaust survivor and an actor and educator and motivational speaker. And you know him, and he's going to tell about himself later too. So we're going to pick up where we kind of left off before. Sami wants to address Jeff and chat with him a little bit. So I'm going
to... Chet, I did not hear what you said, unfortunately. That's not the point. But I'm interested for the audience to know, what was your epiphany? What made you suddenly decide from being in charge of one of the largest neo-Nazi group to flip? And it's very important to understand in your own words, and to inspire young people to understand what made you, because obviously you were indoctrinated. And normally when somebody's indoctrinated, it's almost impossible to bring him to critical thinking. There must have been maybe other events, but especially one moment that was really changing. The other thing that I would like, maybe we can work together with the SW, Simon Wiesenthal Center, and maybe they can arrange for us to speak together and to interview each other in various schools, wherever you go and everything else. So I'm leaving it up to you now.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And let's talk about that maybe after the program. As far as what was the moment that helped me to change, it was a series of events, but it took time. Unfortunately, it wasn't just one event, but it started. I left the movement in early 2019, and by 2016, I had met a man by the name of Daryl Davis, an African American man, and we had sat down and. Daryl had told me a story about how hate and racism had affected him as a child. And all of a sudden, when I heard the story about how hate and racism affected him, I thought I was part of this grand, noble movement that was doing good things, that was going to save my country and save my people. And when I'm sitting across from a man like Daryl Davis and I'm hearing his story about how the ideology that I stood for caused him pain and suffering. He was targeted at 11 years old at a Boy Scout parade, and white adults were throwing rocks at him. So I heard that story from Daryl, and I felt like I put myself in his shoes, and I thought, this isn't a noble cause that I'm involved in. This isn't right. And that started the process. Soon after meeting Daryl, I had met a Muslim filmmaker in a similar type of situation, and she talked to me about how the ideology that I believed in caused her to feel less than, hated, not worthy growing up, and asked me how that made me feel. I was told for years and years when I was involved in this that what I was doing was wrong. My family tried to stop me from being involved in it. My grandparents, everybody you could imagine. And I was not listening. Every person that told me I was wrong, I pushed back on it. And I didn't, I wouldn't listen to them. But when you're faced with an human being that had been affected by the ideology that you stood for, and sitting across from them and hearing that story, it something broke inside of me. I felt like this isn't I can't stand with this movement anymore. So at first I was trying to change things and trying to quote unquote fix things in the organization, and then I realized, what I'm doing is putting lipstick on a pig. There's no fixing this. This is a movement that's not good for humanity, not good for anybody that's involved in it. And so eventually by early 2019 I broke free, and I said I wanted to speak out against it and do something in peace building. And within 2 days of releasing my website and putting out a public statement, Simon Wiesenthal Center had their chief researcher had reached out to me, and was on a plane to Detroit to meet with me, and that we went from there.
Now, one of the interesting things that there are a lot of things that we can learn from our conversation today, but one of the things that I want to emphasize is the power of words. We have to be very precise with the words that I'm using, and I just went through in the last couple of days something that I realized that because I said something, the other person interpreted it in a different way, we were not on the same page. So I have to be precise in what the words we are using, and at least I do not give the opportunity to my audience to interpret what I say. I will tell them what I mean, but what I'm saying. And this is the power of words. Words and images are extremely important, and they are extremely influential in shaping somebody's perspective. And at the same time, we have also words of wisdom. But before I end, I just want to say a few things about some of the lessons that I believe we learned today. It's number one, people have a tendency to assume. Please don't. Okay, before you assume, okay, learn the facts. Very, very important. Because if you assume, you will promote misrepresentations and lies. Before you judge, we're all judgmental. Okay, there's no question. It's how we react to our judgmental things. We have to understand why that person says or thinks the way he or she does. So we have, the understanding is very important. Before we hurt, and you hurt somebody, and you are familiar with it, you went through that particular person, is before I'm judging you, okay? Before you hurt somebody, I have to feel that. If you don't feel it, you cannot really relate, okay, why that person is willing to hurt somebody else. And at the same time, the most important thing, before you speak, think. Okay? It's many times you speak too fast, okay? And you cannot retract the words that you said. Even if you didn't mean it, they will stay with you forever. So this is for today's lesson of this particular...
Well, I want to ask, can I ask you both the same question and kind of listen to what both of you would say, your perspectives? As somebody who's been in education, like I've seen, because we're framing things in a one-way approach and critical thinking, you both talk about critical thinking, this movement and this, like, you tried to fix it within your organization, hoping that, like, because you had a wake up, that maybe you'd be able to share that, but that's not right how things work. He just said you have to feel it, right? In order, people are not like, oh my God, things are great, let's change. It has to be because it's coming from something. You used the word humanity a few times, and I just want to tell you that the name of this studio is Humanity Matters. It's hmTv. It's just really profound, because I feel like that's what we're doing, is we're failing humanity, right? And so I'm asking this question, okay, to both of you, because there are things we can do, right? There are things that you're both doing, and you're speaking, and you're going, and you're trying to connect with people more than ever, right? Because the connection is what I think made you kind of wake up or realize, right? Whoa. I mean, you just gave two really interesting examples. So as adults, right? Where do you think that we have failed children the most right now. And like, how can we help them become upstanders? Because kids are afraid, as people are afraid to speak up, whether it's about Jew hatred or anything. I mean, you know, you can see a kid is getting bullied today and everybody's taking out their cell phone and making a video, but nobody's going to help them. I mean, you see people getting hurt. I mean, I don't want to tell you different things that have happened in New York City. Like, I heard a story the other day about someone being set on fire. Nobody's putting out the fire. Everybody's taking out their phone. What's going on? Where have we failed people? So how do you become an upstander, and how have we failed them?
Well, one of the things that I forgot to tell you about MS 447, our New York mayor's wife, okay? Okay, so she is an artist. And in school, they posted, okay, her anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, you know, pictures and everything else.
You saw them?
I did not, but I got the messages, okay, a lot of people. So this is something, one of the things, that's why images play a very important role. So sometimes you don't have to say anything, what they see. We have right now a media that is not really participating in teaching the young people. Our leaders do not teach young people to take responsibility. When somebody misbehaves, like we have the riots, we don't have no consequences. So why wouldn't they keep escalating? Okay, it's normal. That's how all the tragedies in the world, genocide and Holocaust, happened, because there were no consequences. So they kept escalating. The most important thing, parents are not involved today. They are so busy, so they are not involved. The other thing is that you have right now social media like TikTok, which I think is, in many ways, it's a wonderful platform, but it's also an extremely dangerous, platform. In everything that we have, and the technology is changing too fast, even for me, okay? And what happens is everything has positives and negatives, and we concentrate on negatives because it's easy to understand, and we do not dwell on the positive. When I talk to students, I spoke to second graders, and boy, we underestimated their intelligence, and boy, they ask better questions than teenagers, just simply out of curiosity, not knowing anything. Their minds were not filtered. And when I speak to schools, one of the things that I try to do, it's not always possible, is to bring the parents. Because whatever you taught them, once they leave the class or the session, they will forget. They're involved in their lives. But the parents, if they are involved and they know about it, they can start talking. So we have to involve the parents also. And I'm going to repeat it as often as I can. Without the media, we will not accomplish anything. And one of the things my goal is right now is there are only 24 states that mandate genocide Holocaust curriculum. In New York, for an example, it was enacted in 1994. It is not enforced. And I have met in all my presentations only 3 teachers that talk about the Holocaust, which encompasses every aspect of life: medicine, art, literature, social studies, everything. Only 3 teachers that teach it for a full year. So my goal right now is not only, hopefully, to mandate it in every state, but most importantly is to speak to the state senators. It's not a city issue. It's a state issue. To speak to state senators to enforce it. I am not interested in legislation because people will not fulfill it. I am interested in somebody that does not, obey the mandate, do not give them the money to that particular school. It must be enforced. I don't know if the senators will want to talk to me, but that is my goal.
So, Jeff, I want to give you an opportunity. Thank you, Sami. And I love that idea. And I'm going to try to help you with that. But some states don't want to hear from us. But that's okay. We'll come knocking again.
They will.
We'll come knocking. Don't worry.
If the media, if you can convince the
We're
media
gonna get
to
the
come
media.
with us.
We'll get the media too, little by little.
How do you think that the 24th state was accomplished? Because I was the keynote speaker in Pennsylvania. The media was there, and the bill
that was
passed.
the 24th state that got it.
That was Pennsylvania.
That's really a nice story. I never heard that story. All right, we're gonna. I want to hear that.
And I was the keynote speaker, and the media was there, and the bill passed.
So I guess one of the answers, right, is being an upstander is bringing media and bringing more attention to it. But just from your perspective, I mean, if you want to talk to what Sami, I don't want to, dictate, but I just want to give you an opportunity to maybe kind of answer, in what way you think that maybe we have kind of failed children the most, or what it means to kind of do what you are doing, because people are afraid to talk. You did talk about how you humanize people and things. I'm curious, what advice would you give, to like young people? How do you encourage them to, be brave when they're scared?
Well, and to Sami's point as well, I mean, the lack of consequences, as he mentioned, during some of the riots and some of the criminal activity, I think that 100%, I agree with that. It bolsters that bad behavior, because if there's no consequences, that means you can keep doing it. And we saw that take place in society. So I think there's a lot of people that are just genuinely afraid. There's been studies on this and things of that nature. I don't have all the stats and statistics in front of me, but a person could look up this research. But there's been, I just saw a poll recently the other day that talked about how a lot of school teachers have this anxiety because they don't know what they're able to say, what they can say, that sort of thing, because we live in this, hyper polarized environment now where everything is being politicized and all these other problems. So, I mean, and you asked me like 5 questions, Carin, so I'm trying to remember them all. But another one is what do I with the schools and how do we reach the youth? So for me, one of the things that I address directly there is humanizing one another, and to the point of bullying and being an upstander and not a bystander. One of the examples that I'll talk about in schools, especially, is kids. A lot of young people, especially in the inner cities, are getting involved in gangs and things like that. So it might not be white supremacy or something like that, but it's still it extreme, and it's leading to a bad place. So I talk about I use my story as an example of what can happen. Of really about going down a really dark path, but I also will make that draw that comparison to things that resonate with the students in those communities. So if there's a large gang issue in a certain school or certain communities, we'll talk about that, because again, these cults and gangs and extremist groups are very similar in a lot of ways. Of course, with gangs, you've got your criminal element and stuff like that, which is a little different, but still the psychological holds, the sense of belonging, the sense of purpose, all of that fills those voids. So one of the examples I'll give young people is like, you may think like I did, like you made this choice and it doesn't affect the people around you, that's just your choice, but it does. In my trajectory, in my story, my involvement in extremism cost my mother her career. Like this is and it cost my family all kinds of other things, other problems and challenges and struggles through the years when they had nothing to do with my involvement. So it has a ripple effect. So, for example, in these gang areas, you talk about somebody's involved in a gang. You may have made that choice. You're involved in a gang. What happens when that rival gang does a drive-by at your mom's house or gets your little sister or something like that? Because they're not thinking about that. Most people are not thinking about those things when they make these choices, because they think it's only going to affect themselves, and they've made that decision. They're confident with it. So I tried to give them different perspectives to think about some of the cause and effect, because you could tell them, hey, you could lose your life in this. You could get thrown in jail. And I tell you what, a lot of the people, this was the same reaction that I had when my grandfather tried to tell me not. He says, Jeff, the path that you're on is going to lead to one of two places: prison or death. And my response was, I don't care if they kill me. I don't care if they throw me in jail. I'm going to keep fighting. And that's pretty typical in the extremist mindset. So if we can break that kind of ideology and show people like this is, for one, uniting in our humanity, seeing the humanity in the people that you're dehumanizing or once looked upon differently is key. And also letting them understand that there's consequences for this kind of involvement, and it doesn't just affect you, because most of them don't care about the consequences for themselves, but maybe they'll realize, this can damage your family, your wife, your children, anybody that's around you. It's a nonstop ripple effect of chaos and destruction that these extremist movements breed.
Sami's getting an award. I just want to make one little plug in here for a second, because all of what you're saying and all of the ways in which you turned your life around and are still continuing to share and spread those messages is because you don't want to see it happening again, right? And that's the same thing that Sami is talking about. I think even when you mention trying to change within, right? So we have this problem of there's no consequences. It seems like our leadership is not really interested. I don't know if they're afraid, if they're disengaged, if they're trying to appease one side. I'm not sure, right? Humanity seems to be not winning. So maybe this honor that Sami's going to get is an honor that for those who confront darkness with light. And I think you're both doing that. I think that this, Sami, when I met you, it was like light came into my life also. No, I'm serious. I don't know how I got so lucky that God sent you.
Well, the greatest compliment that I got was from Chabad.
No. Really? This is what you're going to do now?
No. Okay. Well, you opened the door. Okay, so Chabad said,
you could say
you are like a menorah. Okay, you bring light where there is darkness. Sorry, you open up the door.
No, okay, so just kind of, because in closing, we have 3 minutes, and right, I could go on. I mean, what gives you both hope that people can change? And what message can you guys share? I'm going to give you each a minute to kind of close up. Sami, I'm going to give you a minute, and then I'm going to do one of these to give Jeff a minute, okay?
Okay. You cannot change anybody. You can change only somebody's perspective. Okay, so I think about 2 weeks ago, I was at the middle school, and a Palestinian student asked me a question. I made sure that the principal was okay with me answering it, and I was interested only in one thing. By asking him many, many questions, how did he learn what he learned, who told him, all of those things, I was interested only in one thing. For him, in front of everybody, to say, I did not know that. And I felt I succeeded, because they are so indoctrinated that it's almost impossible for them to think that there are other ways. So the most important thing is, number one, you have to diffuse somebody's combative attitude. So if somebody would come to me and tell me, Israel is an apartheid state, as an Israeli, okay, as a Holocaust survivor, okay, I would say I agree. Imagine his or her shock. So by diffusing, okay, this one, all I can say is that gives you the opportunity to ask questions, and then let that person decide if he buys, if he agrees or disagrees with what you show him. So it's very important, okay, not to go into confrontation.
Exactly. Not to go in confrontation, I agree. Jeff, what about you?
Fantastic response. What Sami just explained there, I'm so glad he had a chance to go before me on this one, because what he just explained there is one of the principles of relational dialogue, which is the same process, the exact same process that we use for extremist disengagement and helping people get out of these extreme movements. Telling somebody they're wrong, you're just going to get immediate pushback, but shifting their perspective and them seeing that and being being able to change on their own, because forced change isn't real. Real change has to come from the heart and come from the mind. So the person has to believe that they're making that change. What we can do from our perspective is we can give them the tools to change. We can help set that up where they can see things through a different light or a different perspective. And that's done through relational dialogue, through conversations, through respectful dialogue and curiosity, asking questions, and basically the exact same thing that Sami just mentioned there, and how he shifted that conversation. It's the same. It's a very similar process to what we utilize with that. And my thinking on that is, if it works in the extremes, and it does, because it's the same process we're using to help people leave these extreme organizations, it can work in every aspect of society as a whole. So it's a skill that I think so many more people could benefit by learning, and it's a good leadership skill as well.
I want to just thank you both. We're going to reach out to those organizations. I think the two of you can definitely go on a tour, maybe a shifting perspective and like a kindness. Let's ripple kindness everywhere. Thank you for tuning into this episode of It's All About the Children on hmTV. I appreciate my guest, Jeff Schoep, so much for sharing some insights on his life, and my co-host, Sami, my adopted Zaidi. And if you enjoyed exploring this information, history, and stories that we spoke about today, please subscribe, share, and stay connected for more. Thank you.